What is going on, folks? In this video we're going to go over classes in Python. Okay, so to write a class you just type the word class space and the name of the class. In camel case you want to capitalize the first letter of each word in your class to follow the coding standard, and follow it with a colon. And you can have attributes and you can have functions in your class. The functions inside your class are called methods. You might call an attribute called uh, value equals 100. You can have a method def my method, and your method should have the word self as the first input parameter if it's a method in your class. And you can return something, for example, return hello world. Alright, so to instantiate your class or create an instance of it, all you have to do is say if it's called my class instance equals my class, just put some parentheses like that. Alright, and you can say out, let's just print it. So print my class instance dot my method. So to access your methods or your attributes in your class, you have to put a dot after instantiating it, and you can access those values. So it returned hello world, so we should see print hello world. We should see hello world printed. Let's print it, run it, let's run it. And we see hello world down here. Okay, what if we wanted to print out the value 100? Run that. There we see our 100. Ideally you want to make it a string. Because it's just a integer. And you get your 100 printed out. Alright, that's just a very simple class. You can also have you could have a init method where you write def space init with 2 underscores on either side of the word init. Of course, you're going to have the word self because it's a method inside your class. And you inside your init, you can have values. You can have attributes defined. You can call methods in your class. Self dot data equals something. Let's call it self dot data equals hello universe, maybe. And now what if we wanted to say print my class instance dot data? We can do that if we want. We need our parentheses around our print statement. And there's hello universe. What if that's your data and you wanted to return hello data this way, or hello universe this way? Your method your method might say return self.data. The data is defined as hello universe already when it's instantiated. And so whenever you say my class instance dot my method, and run it, you'll see hello universe that way. One thing to note is that the values, if you have attributes like this above your init, you don't have self in front of them, and these are going to be class attributes shared by all instances. And these are going to be anything that's defined in your init is going to be, or it's going to be defined with self dot in your init. It's going to be instance attributes, and these are unique to each instance. Alright, moving along, I'm going to do the example that they show you on python.org, where you create a class called complex. Let's capitalize the C. Okay, and in your init, we're going to have the word self. We're going to have the real part and the imaginary part. Self dot real part equals real part self dot imaginary part. So once your instantiation happens, it's gonna have these two values passed in with your instantiation. Whatever's in your init, whatever's after self in the init, that'll be passed in as your parameters during instantiation, as you see here. Let's do 1 and 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method here, def get, let's call it get complex number, return, use the complex, it's the built-in called complex, use that, and self dot real part, comma, self dot imaginary part. Alright. And so if we want to do, after instantiating, we can do complex instances is our instantiated instance of that class, so that's our object. Complex instance dot get complex number, and let's go ahead and print that. Okay, it's 1 plus 2j. That's our complex number. As you can see, we have the method was called here using a dot again after instantiating it. Whenever we instantiated, we passed in our 1 and our 2, and that's passed into our, these are our initialized parameters 1 and 2. What if we wanted to go ahead and run the method during instantiation, we might want to say self dot get complex number. Now it's kind of redundant that I could have just used the local variables real part or an imaginary part, but I'm just going to use the instance attributes here, self.real part and self.imaginary part. Or actually, we don't need to even pass anything in. Sorry. So it's gonna already get the complex number that way. Let's do like print. So now we can just do complex instance, or let's see here. Let me go ahead and run it as is. And when it ran it, all it did in one line here is it instantiated it. And when it instantiates it automatically runs the init method, and the init method has that print statement in it already. Okay, so those are some examples of how to use your init method, how to instantiate your class, how to pass in parameters to your init method. Let's see. I'm going to create a example. I'm going to use the example of class dog. This is also on python.org under classes in their documentation where they create a class dog, and let's use a class attribute called kind and set it to canine. And this again, class attribute. It's a class variable shared by all instances, and create an init method. Passing in the name of the dog. We're going to create our instance variable. This will be unique to each instance because it's the name of the dog, and that's why it's initialized under the init. Remember, the class variable does not have a self dot in front of it, while the instance variable does have a self dot in front of it. Okay, now we can say dog 1 equals dog Fido, dog 2 equals dog Buddy, print dog 1 dot kind, and run that to see the kind of dog 1 is canine. What about dog 2? Well, we know this is going to be the same. So when I run it, I'll see canine again. What about dog 1 dot name? And we see Fido and You run it with dog2.name, and you see buddy. Alright. What if you have some tricks defined here? You can set them, you can initialize tricks, for example, as an instance variable with a blank list. And let's do def add trick. Where you just append the trick to the list of tricks on self.tricks. So you could say dog one dot add trick rollover dog 2 dot add trick play dead. Now they're already instantiated, so also before that, of course. So you can say dog 1, or let's do print dog 1 dot tricks. And you see rollover, it's a list with just rollover in it, and print dog2 dot tricks. And you see it's a list with just play dead in it. What if dog 1 had another trick? Call it sit, and print dog 1's tricks. And you see sit. It's important that these instance variables are under the init. Remember, that's where they're defined, because these are specific to each instance of the dogs, of each dog. And so we've gone over a whole bunch of different small things about classes, how to define the class variables, the instance variables, the init statement, how to pass variables to the init statement, class methods, different ways to call your class methods. You could even call methods from other methods. I showed you an example where the init statement called a method. If you're doing that, make sure you call them with self dot if it's inside your calling from inside your class. From outside the class, you can access your methods and your different variables in your class with a dot after the instance name. And those are a lot of different things about classes in this brief introduction. Hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.